Welcome back to How to Build an Archetype, the series where I punch through New Game Plus. It's been a while since I've played metaphorrefantazio, but now I'm back with the next installment, featuring the Archetype Brawler. For those who don't know, this series is where I take an archetype lineage, analyze them through their skills and flavor text, and build that archetype through skill inheritance and synthesis skills, while keeping them in line with their theming of the archetypes. I'd like to get into it right away, but before that, a word from a sponsor. This video is sponsored by First 4 Figures. If you're like me, you'd love anime and games, and as a huge anime and game connoisseur, maybe watching or playing isn't really enough. That's where hobbies like figures comes in. But have you noticed recently that the prices of figures have been skyrocketing, and when you get around to buying one of them, you realize that they are so big and you don't have the space for them. If only there is a figure adjacent hobby that requires less space with an affordable price. Introducing FiGGYZ. FiGGYZ is a new product lineup by First 4 Figures. It features a new style of collectible figures that delivers on being affordable, doesn't require much space, and is highly customizable. It has a compact body, but feels premium with a sturdy weight. It doesn't feel flimsy. One of the main things that I like about FiGGYZ is the art style that they created for these figures. It's kinda like a pixel art, but it's not as pixelated as some pixel arts out there. It kinda creates a new art style from that concept, and I like that. With the reversible metal background and the mag mount system, it gives these artful pieces a cool 3D look. With a 3M wall mount magnet included, FiGGYZ is a figure that can be placed anywhere you like. Place it on your desk, you got it. Stick it on your fridge, you got it. Stick it on your wall, you got it. FiGGYZ is also a highly modular figure, with a super rare chance of a hidden chase background included in your FiGGYZ. You'll get a chance to get either gold, silver, or bronze backgrounds for your FiGGYZ, somewhat like a prestige collection. It's a very low chance to get them, but because it is modular, you can trade for them with other FiGGYZ collectors. In fact, FiGGYZ also has a huge collector app to help you with your collections. There's a QR code in the back of each FiGGYZ that you can scan to register and track your growing collections. You can use them to see which series you have missing, see their edition, and their serial number for ease of collection. Here's a quick look on one of the FiGGYZ that I got. Here is metaphorrefantazio's Knight, Hulkenberg. She has her iconic red hair, which is shown quite pronounced with the dark clothing colors. She also wields her trusty halberd on her back, and with her serious eyes, it makes a cool character figure in this art style. Hulkenberg also comes with a background of Royal Capital Grand Trad. It is slightly to the left because it is meant to be displayed with other party members as well. But if you don't like that or only plan to have one, you can switch the background to the backside, the same background image that I usually use for my thumbnails. Unfortunately, I didn't get a rare chase background for Hulkenberg, I got it for other characters, but overall, this FiGGYZ looks amazing. But if metaphorrefantazio isn't really to your liking, FiGGYZ also made other franchise lineups as well. Lineups include character figures from Yu-Gi-Oh!, Freeran, Metal Gear Solid, Sonic, Street Fighter 2, Banjo-Kazooie, Cowboy Bebop, and a lot other notable franchises including Persona 5. So, if FiGGYZ looks interesting to you, check them out at FiGGYZ.com and use my coupon code Izanagi at checkout or use the link in the description down below to get a 5% discount on orders above $50. Again, use coupon code Izanagi at FiGGYZ.com or use the link in the description below to get a 5% discount on orders above $50. Thank you again to First 4 Figures for sponsoring this video. So whenever I think of a brawler, I usually associate brawler with these characteristics. Number 1, as a master of hand-to-hand combat, brawlers associate themselves as the master of dealing blunt force trauma. Not only should their damage type be physical and blunt, or strike in the context of metaphorrefantazio, they should also have the ability to inflict some sort of a stunning effect, because too much blunt force trauma could inflict concussions to enemies, which impaired them in combat. Number 2, being a short-range combatant, brawlers will take some sort of a beating in combat, which makes brawlers required to either have durable health, have some ways to regain health, or somewhat like a buffing state to either increase their offense or defense. It would furthermore be thematically distinct from other classes or archetypes if brawlers use part of their health to gain an additional effect to some attacks, for example. That last one was not necessary, but would be a neat addition to synergize with having durable health. And number 3, a competent brawler should have the ability to parry, deflect, and counter attacks back to the enemy. Blocking and parrying is a main mechanic in most fighting games that mainly features hand-to-hand combat. Even though it isn't required to master it, most great moments in fighting games features great display of technique with parrying and counter-attacking. While Metaphor's Brawler does not have the last characteristic, Metaphor's Brawler do have the first two characteristics, dealing mostly blunt damage that can inflict negative elements like Forget with Skullcracker, and the hero passive, making the attacks in overworld combat stuns enemies easier as well. Brawler also has an injection boost to max HP with Health Font, Battlecry to buff attack and defense, and Perfect Punch as Brawler's main gimmick to utilize Brawler's HP to basically punch harder. More HP equals to more damage, while it costs HP to cast. However, this leads to Brawler's first problem, being that there aren't any self-sufficient way to recover that HP back after serving their gimmick, to deal damage with the cost of HP. In longer fights, Brawler will suffer a lot due to their HP being quickly depleted if they don't use their physical skills sparingly. So, what skills should we inherit to Brawler? To quickly alleviate the HP deficit problem, inheriting a healing skill to Brawler is a quick fix to it. Considering that Brawler might be the only one that needs healing, assuming the loss of HP comes from Brawler itself, a single target healing is enough, and actually preferable due to the minimum MP cost for better MP preservation. Dave from Seeker is the only skill that fits that candidate. However, if you want to expand to be able to heal all allies at the same time, just in case that enemies spread their damages, Medi from Healer is the multi-target version of Day and is a great addition for healing in general. Other than healing skills, honestly I'm at a loss here, because there's not many skills that you can get in the early game that quote-unquote fits the whole theme of Brawler. Maybe the next best thing to do is to add more options of a strike physical damage skill that gives a different additional effect. Shield Arts from Knight is a great candidate for that, because it's a strike affinity damage, and decreasing hit/evasion rate fits that Brawler inflicts some sort of concussion to the enemies, since decreasing hit/evasion rate disorients them in a way that hitting, attack, and evading is harder for them. To further improve Brawler's physical capabilities, you could also inherit passive skills that directly amplify physical damage. Hit Up from Warrior is one of those passive skills that you can get early on, adding 10% physical damage. While it doesn't sound like a lot on paper, it definitely improves a hefty amount. One other notable skill that can also be inherited that you can get somewhat at the later end of the early game, Rebellion from Commander, is a notable buffing skill that increases critical hit chance to increase the chance of being able to manipulate your turn icons by doing critical hits. It synergizes well with Brawler's innate passive skill with Diligent Discipline as well, as they both stack with each other, granting you more critical hit chance. Alright, if you've watched my previous video on Knight, I had a really difficult time presenting synthesis skills because there's like so many synthesis skills for Knight. So, to lessen my workload and to simplify things, let's just get this over with. Oh thank god, Brawler only had 2 synthesis skills. So, Brawler in its whole lineage will have 2 synthesis skills that will gradually be upgraded down the path, and 1 additional synthesis skill for the elite archetype unique to that archetype. So, first of all, Meteoric Fist is a multi-hit, multi-target synthesis skill that deals strike physical damage. Considering that Brawler does not have an AoE attack in their kit, Meteoric Fist is worth it right from the get-go, as it is useful for a group of enemies, especially but not limited to enemies that are weak to strike affinity. To get Meteoric Fist, pair your Brawler with a Warrior, another Brawler, or a Berserker. The other synthesis skill that Brawler had is Energy Ray, and with my experience with the game, Energy Ray is your best friend. It deals huge amounts of light damage as physical damage, meaning that it scales with strength, and it has the property similar to Perfect Punch, being able to increase in damage the more your HP reserve is. This being light affinity as well, covers the light affinity damage coverage as well, but in general, it mainly is great for its raw power in the early game, with very little requirements needed. To get Energy Ray, pair your Brawler with a Seeker, a Mage, or a Healer. To get both of these synthesis skills in one go, the usual combination will be to have 1 Brawler, 1 Warrior, and 1 Healer. You definitely can match them with other required archetypes according to what you need in the party, But because Brawler uses a lot of their HP to attack, including using their synthesis skill, pairing with a healer is recommended to keep your Brawler healthy. Now we move on to the Adept archetype of the Brawler lineage, Pugilist. And right off the bat, we notice something different in Pugilist. You know in other lineage as well that some of the archetypes of a lineage do have different gimmicks to them that kinda separates them with their lineage. For example, Swordmaster from the warrior lineage starts using all multi-target attacks with their offensive skills, or Dark Knight being a more offensive type of a knight archetype. Well, Pugilist starts with the expansions in variations and gimmicks for Brawler by making Brawler the archetype that mainly deals critical damage, with passive skills like High Voltage and Spirit of Adversity. While these are conditional passive skills, these increase Pugilist's critical rate when those conditions are met, making Pugilist a critical hit powerhouse. One other notable thing that Pugilist has that started a trend to the whole Brawler lineage is that Brawlers can apparently do pierce damage with power thrust, and that skill also reduces defense. Decreasing defense in itself is a powerful tool to get in a turn-based RPG, so having that while also damaging your enemies with a different affinity is certainly nice. However, while Pugilist starts as a solid critical hit gimmick archetype, there are two things that I can tell that is lacking from Pugilist, which I would explain by covering those with what you should inherit to Pugilist. First off, Pugilist's critical gimmick is only covered with conditional skills. High Voltage gives you crit when you ambush an enemy, and Spirit of Adversity gives you crit when you are low on health. While you definitely can trigger those conditions deliberately, it is not very consistent whether or not all combat encounters will meet those conditions. Especially for example, against bosses, where you definitely can't ambush bosses. So my first suggestion would be Rebellion from Commander, Diligent Discipline from Brawler, or even Adventurous Curiosity from Soul Hacker, considering that the elite archetype of Brawler will not be unlocked until really late into the game, and Soul Hacker can be unlocked quite early. All of these skills increase flat critical hit chance for Pugilists without any conditions. Considering that critical hits are purely chance-based, more chances to land a critical hit is welcome for a critical hit-based archetype. And for the second problem that Pugilists have, because Pugilist is still under Brawler lineage, the gimmick of utilizing HP to deal strike damage is still present. Crushing Fist still has the HP cost, with the component of dealing higher damage the higher the Brawler's HP is. Even the pierce damage skill with Power Thrust also costs HP. If left without any strategy, Pugilist will collapse on longer fights, just like the case as Brawler. So to alleviate that, inheriting healing skills will definitely help Pugilist. The Yama from Magic Seeker is a great skill to quickly heal up Pugilists to bring them back to battle. One other skill that caught my eye as well is Harvest from Sniper, allowing you to restore some HP after defeating an enemy. Although the Pugilist won't be the only character to land the final blow, it is a neat skill to make the Pugilist stay healthy whenever they do defeat an enemy, making them be able to fight longer. Another alternative to avoid Pugilists to consume a lot of HP from skills is to inherit more strike affinity skills that consumes MP instead of HP. There will be a situation where HP is more valuable than MP. In those cases, inheriting either Slam Strike, Slam Shatter, or Frenzy from Berserker are nice strike affinity skills to consume MP rather than HP to help you stay alive a little bit longer. It is also recommended to inherit these because strike damage is inherently boosted by strike boost that Pugilists had in their kit already. So these strike damage skills would also get amplified by that passive skill. Other than that, one more honorable mention is Ice Dodge from General. Just because Brawler is weak to ice, and dodging seems like a helpful skill to have to stay alive. Especially that it helps you dodge what you're weak to, not letting your enemy get optimal turn icon manipulations. Right, piggybacking on Brawler's synthesis skills, Pugilist also only has 2 synthesis skills, and both of them are upgraded versions of Brawler's synthesis skills. Starting from the first one, Tiger Eruption Fist is the upgraded version of Meteoric Fist, dealing multi-target strike damage multiple times. Considering that Pugilist also does not have AoE strike damage skills outside of inheriting Slam Shatter or Frenzy, Tiger Eruption Fist is a great synthesis skill to have ready. To get Tiger Eruption Fist, pair a Pugilist with a Warrior, another Brawler, or a Berserker. The other synthesis skill, Super Energy Ray, is the upgraded version of Energy Ray. Scaling at extreme and having the property of dealing more damage with more HP, it is definitely a powerhouse of a damaging skill. You can probably use this against most boss-like enemies that are not resistant to light affinity to make your encounter against them much easier because of how high the damage can be using this synthesis skill. So to get Super Energy Ray, pair your Pugilist with a Seeker, a Mage, or a Healer. Because Pugilists have the same archetype combination to get synthesis skills as Brawler, the suggestion of a party combination is going to be the same as before, with my most recommended combination being 1 Pugilist, 1 Warrior, and 1 Healer, with Healer being highly recommended because of Pugilist's tendency to consume HP to deal damage with either skills or even synthesis skills. And finally, we have Brawler's elite archetype, Martial Artist. Martial Artist, compared with other archetypes in the game, is one of the latest archetype that you can get. However, that does not stop Martial Artist from being a strong archetype, as well as having a gimmick that inherently solves one of Brawler's main issue. Meditation and Undisturbed Serenity provides Brawler with self-healing, which is one aspect that Brawler mostly needs, as they don't have a way to sustain their HP after repeatedly casting their physical skills that consume their HP. The cleanse to specific ailments are welcome as well, considering that ailments can cripple your martial artist by a lot. Furthermore, the upgrade to Health Thrust and, most importantly, Spiral Fist is such a great addition as well. At first, I didn't realize this, but Spiral Fist also dispels buffs on attack, making stacking attack, defense, and hit/evasion buffs obsolete for enemies, as you can constantly dispel them while also damaging them. One honorable mention is the sheer amount of survivability that can be achieved by having 2 new passive skills in Unyielding Blood and Battle Master, as they allow you to heal to full if you manage to get KO'd one time in battle, and the complete immunity to physical ailments, which kinda invalidates Martial Artist's self-healing skills, but whatever, complete immunity is really great. Honestly, with this amount of improvements that Martial Artists got from the previous iteration of Brawler, Martial Artists doesn't seem to have a glaring problem in their kit. It's a really solid and strong archetype. Because of that, I can suggest 2 iterations of Martial Artists that can be used as an example on how to build Martial Artists through skill inheritance. So, the first build that I want to showcase is just a standard Brawler type Martial Artist, inheriting some more survivability and or strike physical skills. For more offensive capabilities, Powerful Pulverizer is a good skill to have as an alternative to strike physical damage that consumes MP instead of HP, to preserve some HP to stay alive, or to not be hindered in damage if you end up at low HP where you can't cast the HP consuming skills. However, for other skills, I would suggest getting more skills to help with your survivability. Regenerate 3 from Samurai is great to regain health per turn to stay healthy. Health Vessel from Destroyer to gain more max HP, and Unshaken Will from Dragoon to complete the list of ailments that you are immune to, adding mental ailments to the list. The second build is piggybacking from Pugilist's gimmick of being a critical hit-based physical damage dealer. We can make Martial Artists have some critical capabilities, even though it won't really be as effective as making a standard Brawler. So, the startup for this build is by inheriting Spirit of Adversity from Pugilist and Revenge Seeker from Destroyer. Spirit of Adversity provides critical hit rate, while Revenge Seeker provides increase to power from skills, which makes your physical skills like Spiral Fist deal higher damage with criticals. However, one caveat is that this build requires you to be on low health to get it up and running. But thinking about it, with the amount of self-healing skills that Martial Artists had, plus Unyielding Blood, you should be fine if an emergency measure for survival is required. To continue on the critical trait from Tycoon is a great skill for critical build, as it doubles the chance to hit a critical strike. For more critical hits, Adventurer's Curiosity is also a good skill to increase more critical chance to the table. With these skills, Martial Artists can be a physical damage dealer powerhouse that can consistently deal critical damage. Although, to be honest, I don't really know if these skills stack the critical rate or not. It might just not stack with each other, making the critical rates not important at all. But the novelty is there, and I can say that creating this novelty is part of the fun of the building process. Lastly, Martial Artist synthesis skills consists of the same pattern that we see before with 2 synthesis skills, but adds 1 more synthesis skill that we will save for last. For now, we take a look at the upgraded version of Tiger Eruption Fist, Bolt Burst Fist. Not only does it increase the overall damage of the multi-hit and multi-target attack to medium, it also changes the affinity to electric, providing 1 more affinity coverage above strike. Being the only AoE damage skill, Bolt Burst Fist is still a worthy synthesis skill to have ready purely for its capability to clear out groups of enemies. To get Bolt Burst Fist, pair your Martial Artist with a Warrior, another Brawler, or a Berserker. Next is the upgrade of Super Energy Ray, Ultimate Energy Ray. Ultimate Energy Ray boasts the highest damage scaling with Severe, plus have the damage scaling based on how high your current HP is. Needless to say, just like before, Ultimate Energy Ray is still a powerhouse of a synthesis skill, especially against boss-like enemies that are weak to light, which in the endgame, there's a hefty amount of them if I remember correctly. To get Ultimate Energy Ray, pair your Martial Artist with a Seeker, a Mage, or a Healer. Lastly, we have a brand new synthesis skill introduced in Martial Artists, Bodhisattva's Palm. This synthesis skill provides high strike damage and implants weakness to the enemy. Bodhisattva's Palm has the signature scaling with caster's current health to further boost the damage that it can achieve. Considering that this is also a 2-turn icon cost synthesis skill, I would say this is also worth it to have ready and cast in battle, especially against bosses. To get Bodhisattva's Palm, pair your Martial Artist with a Gunner, a Faker, or a Summoner. To get all of the synthesis skills, just choose one of each for the other party members. For me personally, I would go for Berserker, Healer, and Summoner. Healer was emphasized to be crucial to be in a team with the Brawler, but for Martial Artists, because Martial Artists can fend for themselves, Healer is not as crucial, but is still favorable because of how good a healer utility can be in a difficult battle. And yeah, that's about it. These are my builds for the Brawler Lineage archetypes in metaphorrefantazio, plus an additional critical base build for Martial Artists. If you have any different build that you'd like to share, feel free to use the comments down below to share them. Anyway, thank you for watching, thank you to FiGGYZ as well for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you guys next time.